Hey, what's happening, everybody? This is Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes. Along with doing these YouTube videos, I also practice what I teach in these videos by putting them into my client sites. And one client site that I'm working on right now, it's still in the development stage, was I built this navigation whereby I put these blue slashes in between the three words of the navigation. This is going to be a supplemental site to her podcast when it comes out. And so the navigation is pretty small, and so I felt the two blue lines separating the three words would be a good design element. Now, it looks good on the desktop, but remember, you also have a mobile site. And so I wanted to make sure that they went away from the mobile site, but came back when it came to the tablet and the desktop size screen. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can put the little slashes in. I've got the little blue lines going on, and to take them out on the mobile version. I'm going to use both Gatsby and React Bootstrap in order to help me achieve this result. And with that, let's get started. All right, once again, my name is Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes, and this channel is all about helping you design more and to troubleshoot less. If that's what you're looking for online, then hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell so you never miss a video. All right, a couple bits of housekeeping. First off, I am using my own version of the Gatsby default starter design. All I did was I basically stripped out the design components and left the header, the good stuff, and of course the famous page 2. Hi from second page and comes back. I also preloaded React Bootstrap. If you want to know how to install it yourself, I'll put a link in the description below. Also, if you want access to the source code, I'll also put a link in the description below for you to download this. All right, so what I want to do first is I have to make sure that I have both a logo I can use for my navigation inside my images folder, and I've got one right here. Oh, and it pulled in a screen. There we go. Acme Bread Company looks amazing. So I need to have a logo that goes at the very top and then the navigation that goes below it. So also in my little template, I also have a CSS folder and a custom CSS, and that CSS file looks like, and again, it pulls up on our screen. Looks like that. Pretty amazing, pretty boring. It's pretty empty. So what I first want to do is I'm going to go into my header file since I am using the default starter, and inside of components, I'm going to head over to header. And what I get is something, well, pretty empty. Again, now I want to make it my own. So I'm going to also utilize React Bootstrap to bring in components for this to happen. I'm just going to comment this piece out for right now because I do want to use the site title for later, but not at this very moment. I'm going to bring in a couple things from React Bootstrap. I'm going to say import and use my curly brackets and say container navbar nav, because those are the three pieces that I need to use for this project. Then I'm going to say from and React Bootstrap. Perfect. I should pull my terminal over, and yep, it gives me warning signs that I have not used link, container, navbar, and nav. That's fine. I'm going to use them. The reason why I like to use containers is because it includes the breakpoints that I get to use in my design. So I'm going to type container as the first and foremost piece and hit the word test. This will establish if this is working or if I haven't installed everything properly. Head back to my site. I'm going to put it over here, move my code around a little bit just so I get a little more viewing area. Hi people, and the word test shows up. Cool, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in all my HTML or my JSX first, I should say, and then I'll head back to the CSS. The first thing I need to do is import that logo. So I'm going to say import logo from, and I don't remember my file name because I did not make a note of that. In my images, acmebreadcode.svg, import logo from ... to go out of the components folder into the images folder and Acme Bread Co. So in the container, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the navbar. So in container, we can take out the word test, and I'll say navbar expand, and this is important. I'm going to say medium because for me, this is a smaller design. I only have 3 words to my navigation, so the medium breakpoint does work in this case. Collapse on select, which is capital O, capital L, is going to equal true. Equals, curly bracket, true. This will just allow me to close when it hits the medium size. So I have my navbar expand. The first thing I need to add inside this navbar is a link to my home page for my logo. So I'll add link to slash, and then I'll add image source for my logo. And let's add logo. Always important to add the alt information. So here is where I'm going to grab my site title. I'm going to say alt, site title, and now I can take out that link above in my design. Let's also add a / for the image and save. And what's going to happen is by default, the SVG file will not come through unless it has a default width. So I'm going to say width equals 200. And now what should happen is my logo should come through. And maybe it is not reloading. There it goes. Just wasn't hot reloading in that case. So if I take it out, it will disappear, or it should, or it did, or it used to. Yeah, it went away. I just didn't have the hot reload perfectly in that case. So I'm going to add width 200, just add a basic design. And again, it's not quite hot reloading on that image. There we go. Now we're all set. So Acme Bread Co. image, we're all set to go on the link for the navigation when it comes to the logo. The next part I want to add is the actual navigation. Again, it might not look perfect yet, but in CSS, we can do all the magic after we establish our HTML/JSX. I'm going to say navbar toggle, not tog, but navbar.toggle, and aria controls equals navbar responsive. This is just the name that we're going to pass to our ID to make sure it collapses upon a certain size. And the navbar toggle self-closes, so I'm going to close it up. Now I'm going to add the navbar collapse. Navbar collapse, not, should have had a capital C. Navbar, it's not catching for some reason. Oh, that's because I didn't type in navbar. Navbar collapse. Almost VS Code is a little smarter than I am at times. So navbar collapse I'm looking for. ID, and I'm going to replicate the same name as aria controls within the ID, navbar responsive. I'm also going to add a class name equal to justify content center. This is going to move our content into the middle of the page. I'm then going to close it and hit return. Notice how it now creates the navbar collapse above and the closed navbar collapse below. I'm then going to add the nav. So if I say nav, hit the return key, it should open and close. And now it should happen, which it, for some reason it wasn't showing. I didn't save before. Just so you know that if I, for some reason it doesn't want to keep giving the error message. There it goes. I'm not quite sure what it did before. But note now that the nav was as an error message before. And now that I add the nav, it is no longer giving me an error message as I've utilized the container, the navbar, and the nav. Cool. Now in Gatsby, this is a little different because I have to leverage the link component to move things around within the pages. So I'm going to say UL and class name equals nav nav-nav. This is actually from vanilla or the vanilla Get Bootstrap, but we can leverage it within React Bootstrap. Pretty cool. I'm going to close it up and use li, and just for display purposes, I am going to return key that. We can put the link in the middle of the li. Link to, we're going to say is /page2, because that's the only page I have. I guess I also have a 404 page, but still. So I'm going to say link to, and I'm going to add class name. Because we are leveraging the link component within Gatsby, we have to default back to the classic vanilla Get Bootstrap and that's going to be equal to quotes nav link. And I'm also going to add the active class name, which is going to be active. Hopefully this is all going to fit. And there's my link, and I will say page 2. Awesome. So because I do want to put slashes, I'm going to create a page 3 and a page 4 for this demonstration. Of course, these are not going to work because I don't have those pages, but if I did, well, they would work. So I'm going to duplicate it down and say page 2, page 3, and then do one more and say page 4. And what it should look like is page 2, page 3, and page 4. And again, only page 2 works. There's my actual dark color for the select. And I can go back and simply click on this button to see the home page. And page 3, error message, page 4, error message. Awesome. My JSX is looking pretty darn good. So now I want to go into my CSS and move it around. So in my custom area, I should have an empty slate to work from. So within my CSS, what I always like to do is think about biggest to smallest, top to bottom. That means the logo in theory is the first thing I would design inside my navigation. Then the nav would be second, and then the UL, the LI, and finally the link. The link's already been designed, but I want to, of course, move this navigation not to the right, but down below Acme Bread Company. So that's going to take the nav and essentially the nav bar to move around. So in custom CSS, I'm going to say nav bar. Nav bar. I'm going to give it some padding on the top and bottom because it is going to need some additional space. So I'll say padding 0.5 rem and 0. The reason why I use rem for spacing is in both the React and the vanilla Get Bootstrap version, their spacing also relies on rems. So I think about, okay, if they're using 1 through 5 from 1 rem to 5 rems, then I'm going to use the rems as well to keep it consistent. So if I want to say 1 rem here, it'll create 1 rem when I say, for example, margin top 5 or 5 rems there. So that's why I use rems in this case. You can also use pixels, EMs, whatever you like in theory. Now the display, we're going to say, is going to be inherent because in this case, I'm going to take flex out of the equation. I don't need flex to work. So if I drop it in, check it out. There it is, but the logo is not moving. So what we have to do is we have to say text align center. And now, boop, there it is. Since it's now in the middle of the page, there it goes. And whoa, that's not good. That's only because we've taken the flex out of the equation. We of course need to bring back the flex when it comes to the mobile size. So let's do that. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a media query and whereby I'm then going to bring back the flex for it to work. So I have to say at media, I'm going to say max width 767 pixels, not ox, but px. How I got to this number is because I'm using, if we go find, the Get Bootstrap has a numerical breakdown. So if we head over to documentation and head to layout, you'll find the breakdowns right here. So the medium will break below 768 pixels. Hence why I'm using 767 pixels, and I specified MD for medium. If you have a large navigation, you might need to break it at 991, or if you have an exceptionally small one, then I might break it at 575. I generally don't like to say small because it depends on the tablet type, whereby it almost gets a little scrunched up. And so I almost always will have a small navigation default to medium and a larger navigation default to large. And I almost never use the XL or the extra large feature. So that's how I got the numerical value of 767 pixels based upon the Get Bootstrap of medium of 767, 1 pixel less than the breakpoint for the container. So long story short, that's how I got the numerical value. Awesome. So let's bring back flex. So navbar, let's add our curly brackets and say display, if I can spell display properly, flex. And let's go back. I'm going to close this up. If you want to see where this is, it's getbootstrap.com/docs 4.5 layout and overview. And if I then refresh the page, making sure it's working, there it goes. Now it's on the left and on the right, but of course this is for the mobile site, so it's going to be much smaller than that. In fact, let's inspect it. There it goes. Now it's looking much better. We have logo on left and drop down on right. Pretty awesome. So we have our basic structure in place. That's always the first thing I want to do. The next step is now I want to add the slashes, but only when it comes to this page and not the mobile. So let's go back up on top of the media query. We'll create some space for right now. I'm going to say navbar nav. I'm just going to affect the font size because my notes have a certain size will affect the spacing dependent upon how big or small you make it. So I'm going to say font size, come on, return key, 1.1 EMs. I use the EMs much like percentages based upon font sizes, and then for moving spacing areas, I use rems. So I just wanted to make the font a little bit larger than what I had by default and add it as 1.1 or about 10% larger than the default. If you do know your numbers, then EM at 1 is essentially like saying 100% based upon the child or based upon the parent beforehand. I just made mine a little bit larger just so I can add some slashes, and also because the navigation is fairly small. Cool, so after the navbar nav, we can now affect the UL LI design. So we're gonna go nav, UL, navbar nav, or actually skip over the nav and go navbar nav. That's a lot of saying the word nav in a sentence. All right, so I'm gonna say UL.navbar nav. Because what that's going to do is that's going to focus on this piece right here, and then we'll focus on the LI. I could in theory say ULI on its own, but I never like to have that just floating out in space. I'm going to say UL navbar nav LI, and position I need to make relative. We're going to use absolute down the road. We're going to say padding right. I'm going to say 0 pixels for now. We're going to come back and adjust this as we need to. And padding left, 0 pixels as well. This will help us space our design approach once we bring in the slashes. So after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say navbar nav UL LI before. So UL navbar dash nav LI, if I'm typing properly, A : before. We want to add the slash before the text. So before, we're going to say is position absolute. Always make sure you have the relative as the parent before the absolute as the child. The content we're going to bring in is going to be a slash. And I had color. We're going to make it green for display purposes, just because green is awesome. After that, we're going to say a font family. And I'm going to use sans serif for this example. You can bring in whatever fonts you want if you have a different design or a glyph you want to bring in as well. I'm then going to say left 0 and top is going to be 9 pixels. This is the numerical value I found worked for this font size. You might need to adjust this as you bring in this design. Let's bring it in and see if it works. Cool. Let's actually bring in red just so it's easier to see. Sorry, green, you were awesome, but not that awesome. And apparently it didn't catch the hot reload. There it goes. Every so often, if my hot reload doesn't reload hot or on the fly, I just create a space or two in my design, resave it, and it's all set to go. But it's not looking perfect. That's because we did say before each navigational item, add a red slash. We don't want it on the first one. We just want it on the second, third, and if I had 4, 5, 6, 7. So all I have to do is on the first child, don't do it as in the first link. So I'm going to say ul navbar nav and then say li first child. That means the first li don't add a slash. A : before. And then I'm going to say content equals nothing. So on the first, just take it away basically. Poof, there it goes. Now it's gone and we have the slashes in between page 2 and page 3 and page 3 and page 4, and we don't have it on the left-hand side. Pretty awesome. Now, as before, I add padding right and padding left be 0 pixels. And if I do the best I can, don't break. There it goes. Let's break it right there. So what I have is not the best spacing going on, and this requires a little optical looking at it and adjusting as we go along. For my notes, I found that 1 pixels and 4 pixels worked the best when it came to this size font. It's just your generic default font at this size, but you might need to adjust this based upon your design. So your padding right and padding left inside the ul navbar li is where you'll space out the little lines, or if you have another glyph, you're going to space out your glyph or character right here. Cool. We got it working, but we don't have it working. So if I go back to our famous inspect and I head over to our mobile version, we have some red spaces or red slashes going on, which I don't want to have. The easy part is I just have to go back into my media query and take them out. So if I head back to my CSS file, I scrolled that way too fast. All I need to do is I have to write something that says before and take it out. So after the navbar, I'm going to say ul navbar nav to repeat the same system I have above, and say navbar nav li, and before, so double colon before, content, if it's catching the right way, is nothing. Did it hot reload? Did it not hot reload? Oh, you know what it didn't do? That's because it's an A. I was like, it didn't work. That's because I have navbar nav li a before, not li before. Let's try that one more time. There we go, like magic. So it was not the hot reload this time, it was me. And just like that, a little media query is all it takes to take out the content of those slashes on the mobile, but to keep the slashes on the main navigation on the desktop. If you want more videos helping you design more and troubleshoot less, check out the videos I have here and don't forget to subscribe. As always, I'm Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes. Thanks so much for watching and have a fantastic day.